Welcome to Pictures of Health, where we practice being healthy and not perfect.
Well, hello, financially healthy people. And I know some of you might not feel as if you're financially healthy today, but I've learned in my own life that to call those things that are not as though they were. If you begin to practice using positive language, your life will eventually line up to what you're saying. In this second step of our credit repair series, we're going to review a sample credit report and identify if your credit reports contains the only two types of accounts that can really be disputed. Now, if you remember what those two types of accounts are, type them in text chat for me. Or if you're listening via podcast only, go on and say them out loud. That's right. We can only dispute errors and adverse accounts. We're not going to waste our time disputing accurate accounts that reflect our poor payment patterns, right? Because that's not going to get us anywhere. We're only going to waste our time. But I want to take you further in this video and in this particular episode to explain more thoroughly what are specific types of errors you should be looking for and what specific adverse accounts you should be focused on. Now, in episode 6, step 1, I showed you how to obtain your free copies of your credit reports. Now, hopefully, you've got your reports in front of you because as we start getting into some of the examples, I want you to use your pens and mark off things that are potential adverse accounts for you or errors. If you don't have your reports, I want you to pause this listening device or your video, and I want you to go and watch episode 6. That is step 1 that shows you how to request your free credit reports. It should only take you about 15 minutes to follow the steps and get your reports. Then you can return to this video and catch up again. Now, before we check your reports for errors, let's look at a sample report just so you'll know how to read your own reports. Now, this is just a one-page sample because a typical report can be anywhere from 20 to 40 pages long, and we just don't have time to go through anything that lengthy for a sample. But just know that basically the basic categories on the reports remain the same. If you look on the left, this is where you have some of your consumer information. This is where most of your personal information resides. There's also an alerts and triggers section. This is good for those of us who like to put fraud alerts on our accounts. The middle section has recent bankruptcies or third-party collection accounts. There is also a graphical display of overdue accounts. There's a summary of accounts. This person in this sample report has a total of 29 accounts. And finally, there are two scores near the bottom, an insight score and a vantage score. Let's talk about the differences between the two. An insight score is similar to a FICO score because it uses aspects of your current and past credit history to determine your credit worthiness. A vantage score is a scoring model that uses 6 factors to determine credit worthiness. It's while the FICO score or your insight model will only use 5 factors, the vantage score uses an additional factor. Now, despite using different factors, they both share the same credit range, which is basically 300 to 850. I found this infographic to be interesting, and this should encourage you to look at your reports very thoroughly because this chart from the the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, it indicates that 1 in 5 credit report errors and corrections. So consumers had an error on at least one of their 3 credit reports. 1 in 4 consumers identified errors that might affect their credit score. 1 in 5 consumers had an error that was corrected after it was disputed. And 4 in 5 consumers who filed disputes experience some modification to their credit report. Now, let's see if you are in one of those categories. First, I want you to look for errors, and let me give you some specific examples of errors to look for. You're going to look for wrong PII. PII stands for personal identifiable information. This is things like your wrong name or your name spelled wrong, wrong address, your wrong birth date, wrong social security number. These are things that are specific to you, and it's called your personal identifiable information, or PII. Also, you're going to check for inaccurate balances, wrong account open and close dates, you being listed as the primary account holder versus an authorized user, or even vice versa. If you were really the authorized user versus the primary account holder, that's inaccurate information. That's an error. These types of errors can negatively impact your credit score, and they also could indicate fraud activity. So you want to watch things like that very carefully, mark them, and pay attention to them. Next, let's look for or check for accounts that are adverse. And remember, adverse accounts are those negative things that can be legally removed from our credit reports if it's more than 7 years from the date of the first debt. You're going to look for things like accounts that's been sent to a collection agency, or what they would call an account that's charged off. You're going to look for civil judgments or tax liens. You're going to look for bankruptcies. Now, a Chapter 7 bankruptcy can remain on your account for 10 years legally, and a Chapter 10 bankruptcy can remain for 7 years. Now, although I went through these things rather quickly, I want you to take your time and thoroughly review your reports, because in step 3, I'm going to help you file a dispute. So you want to go on and mark off your accounts right now. Get all of that information ready. If you have questions, specific questions about your account in particular, you can email me in private at healthynotperfection@gmail.com. Again, that's healthynotperfection@gmail.com. Email me your specific questions and I will respond. And until next time, I want you to hold everyone at levels that honor you. Bye-bye.